The Panos Skordi Encounter.
Hi, this is Panos here with James Washer to tackle challenges in passing the financial mathematics exam known as FM. James is an expert in this subject and his details will be included in the description. Welcome, James. What is Subject FM?
Well, it's the financial mathematics exam, which the name gives it away. It's about financial mathematics, mostly about moving money around on time diagrams, taking present values or accumulated values of cash flows, which sets up for later exams. Like LTAM has cash flows as well, but those are contingent cash flows. In other words, cash flows that depend on whether something else has happened. Whereas in FM, we're kind of assuming that all the cash flows are certain. In other words, that they're going to happen at some point in the future, and we're just kind of moving them around.
Okay, so is FM considered a hard exam?
Well, I think all the actuarial exams are considered hard exams, but I think most people would consider it the easiest of the actuarial exams. It's definitely a toss-up kind of between P and FM as far as which one's the easiest, and a lot depends on your background. But I would still say it's a hard exam. Like, I'm looking at the pass rate here and the quote unquote effective pass rate, which means that they throw out all the students that don't get within 50% of the pass mark. So just people that they feel like were somewhat prepared for the exam. The effective pass rate is around 54%. So just barely half of the quote unquote prepared students are passing, just a little bit more than 50%. So yeah, I'd say it's still a challenge. Still a challenging exam.
Okay. So is it a computer-based exam? Is it traditional paper and pencil?
Yeah, it's definitely computer-based now. So you go and sit down at a testing center and you take it on the computer there, which was definitely different back when I took it. It was paper and pencil. Now you have scratch paper that you can work on, but you have to select your answers on the computer screen there and submit on the computer.
So how often is the exam actually offered?
It's offered every 2 months, or every other month rather. So for FM, it's offered in December, February, April, June, August, and October. And it's offered a 12-day window during each of those months. So you kind of have your choice among 12 days of start date and then an end date and all the days in between during those months: December, February, April, June, August, and October.
That's really convenient that they do that.
Mm-hmm.
How long does the exam actually take if you take the full amount of time that they allot you?
Yep, 3 hours. And going back to your convenience thing, that is very convenient, because back when I took the exams, way back when, it was only offered every 6 months. So like if you didn't pass, then you had to wait 6 months to take it again. Whereas here, if you take it in December and don't pass, then you can take it again in February. But yeah, the actual length of the exam is 3 hours long. So it's a rather lengthy exam, although all the actuarial exams are, pretty long. So got to get used to that.
I mean, how many questions typically are there on the exam? Is it a set amount of questions or do they vary each time they give the exam?
No, so FM is always 35 questions. Now it's actually a little bit weird because it's 35 multiple choice questions. A few of those questions, and that's all they say is a few, they don't say specifically how many, are actually pilot questions, which means they're not actually graded towards whether you pass or fail, but they want to throw those questions out there before they become official questions so they can get an idea of how hard they are, because not everybody gets the same set of problems. That's how they're able to make them computer-based tests and give them to, if it was the same 35 problems that everybody got every time, then, I could go tell my friend, these were the 35 problems you need to know how to work. So there's a huge bank of problems that they randomly pull from, but they need to know, obviously not all problems are equal in difficulty. So the overall set of problems should be generally the same from one student to the next. So they kind of need to know how hard each problem is. And the way they do that is by giving pilot questions. So let's assume that 5 of the 35 questions are pilot questions, and that means you're actually graded on 30 of the 35 questions. Now, you have no idea which ones the pilot questions are, so you can't really ignore any of them. But so I just tell the students to just treat it like 35 questions and do your best in order to pass.
So how is it actually scored?
Yep. So it's just how many questions you get right. So it's 35 questions, and they're just going to count the number of questions that you get right. And the pass mark for FM is actually known at 70%. So let's assume that 5 of those questions are pilot questions, then 30 of your questions would be graded, and you need to get 70% of those 30 questions right. So if you got 21 of those 30 questions right or more, then you would pass. Otherwise, you would fail. So that's basically it. Now, again, you don't know which ones are pilot questions. So as you're taking sample exams and stuff, if there are 35 questions in your sample exam, if you want to quote unquote pass your sample exam, I would say you need to get 70% right or more. And it's there is no penalty for guessing. So you definitely want to put down an answer for every single one. So if you get a question wrong, you aren't counted off. It literally is just counting the number of questions you got right. And does that number meet or exceed the pass mark?
How quickly is it before you find out if you have passed or not for sure?
Yep. Well, back when I took the financial mathematics exam, I had to wait many months to find the results, but now you get the results more or less instantly. You used to get them instantly, like on the screen, it would pop up. It's actually a preliminary, whether you passed or not, because they say they have to review things, but I never heard of anyone that got a preliminary pass and then was later told that they didn't fail. But unfortunately, it doesn't pop up on your screen immediately anymore. Now it's emailed to you. And from talking with students, most students receive this like within minutes of completing the exam, but I have heard others say that it takes up to 8 hours before you actually get your result. But I would expect within 24 hours of completing, clicking submit my exam, that you'll get your results in your email.
Okay. Are there a maximum number of times a student can take the exam?
Nope, you can keep taking it as many times as you want. So if it takes you 10 times to pass the exam, you're definitely welcome to keep taking it.
There's a whole bunch of exams that you can take, that you must take to become an associate or a fellow. In that sequence of exams, where would you say FM fits? And when would you say you should consider taking that exam?
Yeah, it's a great question. As a matter of fact, you can take the exams in any order that you want. You could take the last fellowship exam if you want before you take the preliminary exams. It's not recommended, obviously, because some of the exams build on each other. I would say almost every student should start with either P or FM. The order on that one doesn't really matter because they really don't depend on each other that much. Now, there are a few things that you might get refreshed on if you took P first that would be helpful for FM, or vice versa. But really, you can take either one of those first. Now, later exams in the preliminary, they depend on P and FM. So I really would recommend that you start with P or FM first. If you have a financial math class that you're taking in college or something, then you might want to take FM at the same time. If you're taking a probability class in college that semester and you decide you want to take your first actual exam, you might want to take the probability exam. So it really doesn't matter. So it really doesn't matter, P or FM, as long as you do those two first, then you can go from there.
Does it make a difference if you take subject FM with the SOA or the CAS, or is it the same exam that you take? It doesn't matter who you register with, you end up taking the same exam.
Yeah, it's the same exam. It actually used to be a jointly administered exam by the SOA and CAS, and now it's just the SOA that administers the exam. But the CAS just kind of piggybacks on the SOA's FM exam. They don't actually offer an equivalent exam on their side, yet they require you to pass that exam. So yeah, you're just going to sign up through the SOA, whether you're planning to be if you're planning to go for an FSA, or if you're planning to go for an FCAS, a fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society. Either way, you have to sign up through the SOA and take the exam through them.
Just a little note here is that if you take the FM exam and you're considering taking the British exams with the Institute of Actuaries, or you're with the Institute of Actuaries and you want to switch over to the American exams, I believe FM gives you a waiver from their CM1, which is a core mathematics exam. But if people are interested, they can just check that out on the websites. So where can students get the study material from?
Well, if you go to the SOA's website, so if you just Google SOA, FM exam, then you'll get all the details of exam FM, where they can provide you with some of the materials, like, let's see, there's a syllabus, the source readings, there's some sample questions, sample solutions. You can find old sample exams, and this is true for all the exams, not just for FM. And they also, they'll list, there's a list of third-party exam prep companies, my company included, to where, if you want to get a study manual or an online seminar or something like that, you can do those as well. Those obviously aren't required. You can just, use the textbooks or the study notes, and not the study notes and things like that to study. But most people tend to use some kind of third-party resource as well.
So are students allowed calculators during the exam?
Absolutely. And for FM, it's probably one of the most important exams to master your calculator, because there's a financial calculator which makes the calculations so much faster. Now, if you had unlimited time, you wouldn't need to have a financial calculator. You can do all these calculations by hand. I mean, a lot of mathematicians say that financial mathematics is really just the sum of a geometric series. If you can do the sum of a geometric series, then you can do everything that you need to do in financial mathematics. The problem is, as we said earlier, it's a 3-hour exam that has 35 questions. So you're talking about 5 minutes per question. So if you're using the sum of a geometric series and I'm using my financial calculator and punching in the cash flows on here and computing it this way, I'm going to be able to solve it much faster than you. You're going to be under a time crunch. You're going to be stressed, and you're going to, struggle because of that. So by far and away, FM is the most important, mastering your calculator. And there's actually 2 calculators. There's this financial calculator, and the other one I usually have it sitting right on my desk because that's the one I use more. I actually recommend that the students use both, because there are certain calculations that are faster at one versus the other. But yeah, it's really one of the keys to FM is mastering the financial calculator so that you can solve problems in the most efficient manner possible.
Are students allowed anything else, such as Excel, cheat sheets, or a formula sheet? I think you mentioned earlier they're allowed scratch paper, but are they allowed the other materials as well?
Yeah, no, currently there are some exams that have Excel, but FM is not one of them. All you're allowed to bring in is the 2 calculators and, your writing utensils, and they actually provide the scratch paper for you. So nothing else is used for FM.
If the student's interested in taking exam FM, what's the registration process?
Yeah, so you have to register with the Society of Actuaries, and then you take the exam at a Prometric center. So like you register with them first, and they give you some kind of code, and then you use that code to register at the Prometric center. And you want to do that sooner rather than later, because those centers will fill up. So you might, for instance, be wanting to take the exam in December and you registered with the SOA, but if you don't also get your position at the Prometric center, then you might find that you're unable to take the exam in that 12-day window because there are no seats there available. So if you just Google, FM exam registration process, the first link is a Society of Actuaries link, completely describing detailed step-by-step how you need to register for the exam, everything that you need to do.
What is the current cost of taking the exam?
So the cost is $250, but of course that just covers the cost of taking the actual exam. You're going to need to buy a calculator, and more than likely you're going to want, unless you're taking a financial math course at college where you have everything you need to know there, you're probably going to, at a minimum, need to buy a textbook or a study manual or some kind of online seminar. And so depending on what direction you go there, I'm thinking the total cost is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 to $500, once you add in those additional costs.
Okay. Well, we've reached the end of part 1 on tackling challenges surrounding the FM exam. Part 2 will follow shortly. Thanks, James. James' contact details will be included in the description. This is your host, Panos Skordi, on the Panos Skordi Encounter. Take care wherever you are.